Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a comedy fantasy movie called The Brand New Testament. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie is set in a world where God lives in an apartment in Brussels with his wife and daughter Ia. He also has an elder son, Jesus Christ, or JC for short. Due to God's controlling nature, he doesn't have a good relationship with anyone in the family. In fact, young JC turns out to be a rebel and left home because he wanted to do things his own way. Moreover, God has grown extremely bored of inventing millions of kinds of creatures. Before the creation of humans, he created the city of Brussels and filled it with animals. He soon grew bored of this as animals didn't do anything interesting. So then he created the first man in his image, named Adam. This man wandered aimlessly around the city for hours on end until he met the first woman, Eve. As God had intended, they soon procreated, which led to human civilization spreading across the globe. Just an entire incest army. Currently, the 10-year-old Ia isn't allowed to go outside, and there's no way in or out of the apartment. God spends most of his day in his office, which has a supercomputer that he uses to control and manipulate the fate of the world. No one other than him is allowed inside the office. God's wife is a bit of a cuckoo and never complains about anything. She spends her days doing embroidery and looking at her baseball card collection, which consists of exactly 18 cards. It is also revealed that Ia, just like her brother JC, is capable of feats of magic. One day at the dinner table, she moves a glass of water simply with her mind and hopes this would impress her father, but God scolds her for it, probably because he's jealous since he can't do magic. To distract himself from his monotonous life, he created humanity as toys. He sadistically causes a lot of catastrophes to watch the humans suffer. He also writes universal laws which causes people a lot of inconvenience, as well as 8-hour workdays and 2 weeks of vacation per year because he's a friggin' prick. One afternoon, God accidentally leaves the office door open, so Ia sneaks inside and takes a look at his supercomputer. The divine child is shocked at all the cruelty her father's caused. Later at dinner, she calls out her dad for this, but it only makes him furious. He chases her around the apartment and whips her with his belt until his anger subsides. After years of both emotional and physical abuse, Ia finally decides to take revenge by doing something good for humanity. The next day, she turns to the figurine of Jesus Christ in her room. She calls his name, which is enough for the figurine to change into a living mini version of JC. She then tells him everything and asks for advice on how to proceed. JC tells her to go get some apostles, people who would spread her teachings. He suggests that she should get 6 of such preachers. She can choose 6 random people from God's files and then simply impress them with little miracles. More importantly, he suggests that she observe the lives of her apostles. This will help Ia write a brand new testament that will guide humanity going forward. Before the conversation ends, JC reminds her that God is nothing without his computer. He also tips her that she can use the washing machine to escape from the apartment. The following night, Ia takes advantage of God, falling asleep on the couch, and steals his key. She gets into his office and takes 6 random humanity cards from a file in one of the cabinets. She then uses the computer to send separate text messages to every person on the planet. In it, she reveals the date of their deaths. Afterward, Ia changes the program password to 18 and logs out. She then goes to the washing machine, gets inside it, and finds a long tunnel that leads to the outside world. As Ia crawls through the tunnel, the world starts to get the texts. People initially think that it's one big prank, but as the time passes by, several people start dying exactly on the mentioned date and time. Humanity quickly realizes that all these deaths cannot simply be coincidences. This causes absolute chaos, as everyone knows how much time they have left to live. Many of them don't even show up at work and spend their entire time with their loved ones. Wars are abandoned, and people start posting themselves doing things they've always wanted to do, but never dared to do before. All in all, the world now has a greater freedom of will. Back at the apartment, God wakes up and finds out what happened through his special TV. He immediately tries to get into his office, but realizes the key is nowhere to be found. He then grabs an axe and destroys the door, only to find out that he has been locked out of his computer. He can smell his scent in the room that ultimately takes him to the washing machine. The hell is this thing? On the other hand, Ia finally reaches the end of the tunnel, which is inside another washing machine at a laundromat. She leaves the building and is immediately amazed by the sights and sounds sounds of the outside world. Ia also enjoys the taste of a burger that she finds in a trash bin. The spoiled meat in it makes her throw up instantly. Nearby, a homeless man named Victor finds her puking and tries to help her. Ia asks if he can read and write. When he responds with a yes, she assigns him as her scribe. She then requests to be taken to the addresses on the apostles' files. Since Victor doesn't have anything important to do, he agrees to accompany her on the mission. Meanwhile, God realizes that he'll have to leave the apartment to find Ia. He knows that if she gathers followers like JC, she could eradicate his control over humanity. Thus, he reluctantly enters the tunnel in the washing machine. In the meantime, Victor takes Ia to see her first apostle, Arielle. Despite learning that she has only 11 years left to live, Arielle changed nothing about her life and continued as usual. She lives alone, which is strange for a woman so beautiful. It is revealed that when she was a little girl, her arm was ripped off by a subway car, so she shies away from people as she thinks people will find her creepy. Meanwhile, Ia approaches her and asks her to talk about herself so Victor can write the lessons learned from her life for the brand new testament. Arielle finds it a bit odd, but she agrees anyway. She then talks about an anecdote of the time when she was approached by a hobo. She had thought he would rob her, but instead, he simply said life is like a skating rink. A lot of people fall, and also the beers are too expensive. Arielle cries as she tells them how that little line got stuck in her head. She thinks she fell a long time ago and has never managed to stand after that, but the beers are still too expensive. Moved by the story, Ia puts her ear against the young woman's heart and tells her that a miracle will happen soon. Later that night, in her dreams, Arielle sees her lost hand dancing on her kitchen table and touches it again. She finally accepts her disability and decides to move on with her life. How is that a miracle? Meanwhile, Ia meets her second apostle, Jean-Claude, a man who is gradually reaching his retirement age. When he was young, Jean-Claude had an adventurous spirit, but then reality hit him and he had to work to survive. This trapped him in a boring 9-to-5 corporate job, leaving him with a depressing routine and no family. Fuck, that hit close. After learning he has 12 years left to live, he threw his phone and briefcase in the trash. He is currently sitting on a bench in a park from which he has decided to never move again. Ia notices him looking closely at the birds in a nearby tree. She approaches the old man and reveals that she can talk to animals. Taking this to be a joke, Jean-Claude tells her to ask the bird why it never leaves the park. The divine kid obliges and also relays the question. The bird says it could ask the same question to Jean-Claude, as he too never leaves the park despite having full autonomy over his legs.
What are you, dumb?
This greatly shocks the old man, and he finally gets up and begins following the bird around. In the meantime, God finally reaches the laundromat. There's an old lady who freaks out upon seeing him coming out of the washing machine. She immediately takes out her pepper spray and sprinkles it on his face, causing him great distress. Later, God tries to grab a burger from a trash can, but a group of hooligans appear, saying it does not belong to him. They then beat him up for it, and he ultimately ends up in a hospital. In the waiting room, he snatches a kid's slice of bread and jam, so the mother knocks him down with her umbrella. The third apostle on the list is Mark, who has 83 days left to live and is addicted to adult entertainment. His most important childhood memory is that of a girl he saw on a beach. The beautiful lady wouldn't leave his mind for 2 years after that, and his dick wouldn't leave his hand either. As he grew up, he started getting attracted to a lot of girls, but he was never successful in getting any dates. Mark even tried learning to talk to women by watching some online videos, but it only made him come off as a creep. When Mark learned about his death date, he took out all his money from the bank and decided to use it on strip clubs. First, he paid for an escort who gave him the best experience of his life. Ia meets him in one such club and tells him that he has a nice voice. She suggests that he should make a living out of it. Surprisingly, the very next day, Mark is hired as a voice actor for the adult film industry. He gets to say things like, "Ugh," and "yeah." One of his colleagues turns out to be Xenia, the girl from the beach. The duo immediately finds a connection at work. While chatting about literature, a few days later they go back together to his apartment where they fall asleep holding hands. Meanwhile, a hungry God enters a church that is hosting a charity dinner. His entitled behavior gets him in trouble once more when he tries to cut the line that's serving food. The famished hobos behind him start getting cranky and a scuffle breaks out. Fortunately, a pastor takes God away from the crowd and gives him some food. He also reminds the stranger that he should love his neighbor as written in the holy book. But this This only makes God mad, as these were JC's words, not his. He then begins saying outrageously insulting things about Jesus Christ. This makes the otherwise friendly pastor incensed, and he starts beating the hell out of God. In the meantime, Iya searches for the fourth apostle, Francois. As a middle-aged man, he has 25 years left to live. The day the death dates went out, he bought a rifle to shoot random people. If it wasn't their assigned date, nothing would happen. But if they did die, then it wouldn't be his fault because it was all pre-written. Iya and Victor find him in a park, laid down with his rifle. As Francois is already selecting targets, Iya asks him to shoot a woman that is about to walk across a nearby bridge. The woman turns out to be none other than Arielle. Francois gladly shoots, but the bullet gets stuck in her prosthetic arm, but he doesn't know about it and thinks it's a miracle. Following this, Francois begins following the beautiful woman around. He gets into an elevator with her and even brushes his hand against her arm, but he doesn't realize it's fake and never dares to speak to her. After ignoring his family for the night, Francois visits Arielle the next morning. He gives her some flowers with his number and even declares his love for her. A shocked Arielle doesn't answer, but she does take the flowers home with her. As Jean-Claude continues to follow his bird around the world, Iya visits the fifth apostle, Martine. She is getting old and only has 5 years left to live. It is revealed that Martine used to be quite romantic when she was young, but ended up stuck in a boring marriage. After learning about her death date, she hired an escort, but the experience wasn't a pleasurable one. One afternoon, Iya and Victor find her in a hotel lobby. The divine child takes her to visit a local circus where they meet a caged gorilla. Martine immediately makes a connection with the beast, explaining that this is the most beautiful thing that has ever happened to her. Iya realizes the gorilla also likes her and relays the information. So, the old lady buys the beast from the circus master and takes him home. As time passes by, the gorilla starts realizing that it is no longer in a caged environment. It develops a deep bond with Martine, and they end up kissing. And according to the scripture, 5 years from now, they may just try to do more than that. Meanwhile, Arielle finally calls Francois and invites him over to her home. She shows him the bullet scar on the prosthetic arm during lunch. The guy is shocked to learn that her arm isn't real, but he doesn't care, as he's in deep love with the woman. Therefore, he kisses her arm, and they end up spending the night together. Elsewhere, Jean-Claude keeps on following his bird, which has now found a flock. The last apostle is Willie, a young child who has only 54 days left. He has always been sick and even got surgery to remove his tumor. When he learned about his death date, Willie decided to embrace his real identity and started dressing like a girl. When Iya and Victor meet the kid, he only has a little over a week remaining to live. She gives him a shiny fish as a gift, which makes him very happy. He now wants to take it to the ocean and release it. The two children also begin hanging out together as they're the same age. During this week, the final stage of Iya's divine plan starts rolling into action. On Monday, Willie sells all of his parents' furniture and heads to a beach to release his shiny fish. On Tuesday, Francois vows to stop killing and spend his life with Arielle. The next day, the gorilla scares Martine's husband away, and they spend the night together. On Thursday, Mark and Xenia get intimate for the first time. The following day, Jean-Claude reaches the Arctic region where the flock forms an arrow to guide him to a local woman. On Saturday, the angry priest loads God in a plane along with the other immigrants that are to be deported to Uzbekistan. As it flies above the city, Iya and some of her apostles take Willie to the beach so he can die at the sea. Meanwhile, God's wife is happy as it seems he won't be coming home. She puts on some music and dances to it while cleaning. She even dares to go to his office to vacuum the floor. The wife then unplugs the computer so she can connect in the vacuum cleaner instead. This surprisingly causes Willie to not die, even when his predetermined time comes. Up above in the sky, the plane that God is in starts losing altitude and begins dipping towards the beach. But at that moment, the wife finishes cleaning and connects the computer again. This starts the whole system from the beginning. All the previously scheduled deaths are overruled, and the computer asks for a password. Curious, she types 18, which prompts the computer to welcome her as the goddess. Meanwhile, God's plane also regains altitude, and everyone loses the text message with their life countdown. The goddess then uses the computer to make the world a nicer, more beautiful place. The skies are now filled with flowers. People can walk on the bottom of the ocean. Gravity is flexible. There's no such thing as comment forums on the internet anymore, and the ice caps stop melting regardless of global warming. The final scene shows the aftermath of the goddesses taking over. Martine has a baby with the gorilla. Victor becomes a renowned author by publishing the brand New Testament, and Francois gets pregnant with Arielle's baby. Meanwhile, God is stuck in an Uzbek factory where he checks every washing machine, hoping for a way out. Subscribe for more videos like this. turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.